On August 22nd, 1998, the Congregation for the Doctrine of the Faith of the Roman Catholic Church issued a warning about the writings of the late Jesuit priest Anthony DeMello. Father DeMello had been dead for over a decade, but his many books had not lost their popularity. Cardinal Joseph Ratzinger, who would ultimately become Pope Benedict XVI, was in charge of the Theological Review and wrote the final warning. In part, it reads as follows. The Indian Jesuit priest Anthony DeMello is well known due to his numerous publications which, translated into various languages, have been widely circulated in many countries of the world. His works contain some valid elements of wisdom, but they cannot be reconciled with the doctrine of the Church. Since many of his books do not take the form of discursive teaching, but are collections of short tales, which are often quite clever, the underlying ideas can easily pass unnoticed. This makes it necessary to call attention to certain aspects of his thought. And then a laundry list of warnings pile up like it's Monday at the dry cleaners. DeMello believes God is a mystery of which little can be said. He posits that all religion, including Christianity, can be a major obstacle to the discovery of truth, saying that, quote, most people have enough religion to hate, but not enough religion to love. At various points in his books, the church is criticized indiscriminately. He says, my religious life has been completely taken over by professionals. He says, the sad thing is that the official church has dedicated itself to idolatry. He says, and tells the story of a public sinner who was excommunicated and forbidden entry to the church. This sinner took his woes to God. They won't let me in, Lord, because I am a sinner, he said. And God answered, what are you complaining about? They won't let me in either. Continuing, Father DeMello demonstrates an appreciation for Jesus, of whom he declares himself to be a disciple, in whom he has faith, and whom he has personally encountered. He claims the presence of Christ as a being living and transcendent, but he leaves us perplexed and concerned. For this reason, those responsible for safeguarding the doctrine of the faith have been obliged to illustrate the dangers written by Anthony DeMello or attributed to him and to warn the faithful about them. So you are now duly warned. And let me tell you why I love Anthony DeMello. He never lost focus on the love of God manifested in Jesus of Nazareth. Certainly he was a multicultural man who called on the wisdom of all the great traditions. First, he was Indian born in what was then Bombay, now Mumbai. He would have been immersed and surrounded by the Hindu culture, but he was raised Catholic. At the young age of 16, he entered the Jesuit seminary. After graduation, he moved to Spain to study philosophy, psychology, and Spanish. He returned to India, where he would eventually become rector of the seminary he had graduated from himself. He would establish multicultural, multi-religious relationships with Catholics, Protestants, Buddhists, Hindus, Muslims, Jews, everybody. His aim was to integrate Eastern and Western theologies, to learn from all of them, to respect all of them, to weave a practical spirituality from all of it while remaining supremely anchored in the love of Christ. He believed all a person had to do to be happy in this world or any world to come was to simply wake up to the love of God. Love, it seems to me, is always a threat to those with any kind of power. Have you noticed that? The Congregation for the Doctrine of the Faith, though they held all the prestige, must issue a condemnation on a happy little Jesuit long dead. Romeo and Juliet's parents won't let them be. They must tear them apart, and it all ends in disaster. Charlie Chaplin, of all people, said, you only need power when you want to do something harmful. Otherwise, love is enough to get everything else done. And when a Jewish carpenter comes preaching the brotherhood and the sisterhood of all people, and that love is the great redeeming force of the universe, the powers must kill him, for he leaves those in power, quote, perplexed and concerned. Here is a parable that Anthony DeMello told often. He called it the art of making fire. A long time ago, there was a man who invented the art of making fire. He took his tools to a snow-clad north where the climate was bitter cold. A lot like this room right now. Could we turn some of the air off? I like it cold, but when my teeth are about to chatter, I know you're freezing. He took his tools to the snow-clad north, the sanctuary of the simple faith where the climate was bitter cold, and taught the people there to make fire. He showed them its many uses, how they could cook, keep themselves warm, keep predators at bay, and dance by the firelight. So they made fire and were grateful for the gift. But before they could express their gratitude, the man disappeared because he wasn't concerned with recognition or gratitude. His satisfaction was knowing that people were warm. He was gone to the next village to provide the same. Well, over time, the leaders of the people of this village decided to collect all the words of the fire maker that he had spoken, and they compiled them in a large book, and they marked them red and read them often. Then they had a picture of the fire maker commissioned. It was placed in a new grand building built to honor the fire maker. They took the tools he had left them to make fire for themselves, and they put them in this new building as well, and they enshrined them in a decorative box. For generations, the book was handed down to others. The tools for making fire were ferociously guarded. Anyone who didn't honor the fire maker, who didn't read the fire maker's book, or who didn't worship in the fire maker's temple was punished. The only problem was the people forgot how to make the fire. This is one of DeMello's short tales, quite clever with underlying ideas. And it concisely gets to his major critique of the church and of the Christian faith and religion in general. We forget who we are and what we are to be about. Now, don't take that personal. It happens. And it happens regularly. The Protestant reformers spoke of semper reformanda in Latin. The church should remain in a state of constant and continual reformation, always reforming. And certainly this applies to structure, to mission, to ways of interacting with and adapting to our individual context. It applies to changing our methods, sometimes even changing our beliefs, but it applies more definitely to the core of our identity and our purpose. To be always reforming is to return again and again to the love of God as expressed in Jesus of Nazareth. The text today, as Anna has once again so beautifully introduced, is from the upper room. The last gathering Jesus had with His disciples. The night He is arrested and charged with blasphemy and treason. Jesus would be crucified within 12 hours of what we read in John 13. So this is a dying man. This is a man whose time is running out. And if you're going to share with others what you deem to be essential, this would be the time to share it. And what does He say? I am giving you a new commandment. Love each other. Just as I have loved you, you should love each other. Your love for one another will prove to the world that you are my disciples. What is the proof that you are a follower of Jesus? That's a blunt question. If proof is too strong of a word, maybe we can just say indication, a clue, a hint, a symptom at least. Is it pure doctrinal integrity, where a person believes everything exactly as they should? No, because none of us believe exactly as we should. Is it unshakable, unassailable commitment and conviction? No, because one can be committed to an inferior cause. And besides that, none of us are as committed maybe as we should be? Is it being on the correct or the acceptable side of the cultural wars, to have taken the right position? But that we use terms like war and taking positions puts us in an adversarial posture from the very beginning, does it not? And most importantly, none of these things were in the mind of Christ on that last night with His disciples. He said, just try to love one another. Let that be your calling card. Let that be the defining characteristic of your life. And then the world will know that you are my disciples. One of my favorite old school folk musicians is Woody Guthrie. Woody was born in the summer of 1912 in Okemos, Oklahoma. He was a fierce man. He had to be. He was a child during World War I, a teenager during the Great Depression, a young man when the Dust Bowl eroded away all of Arkansas, Oklahoma, and a massive swath of the Great Plains. He was headed into middle age at the outset of World War II, and at the age of 40, he was diagnosed with Huntington's disease, which would cut both his mobility and his life short. He was a fierce man who was always on the side of working people, always on the side of poor people, always on the side of forgotten men and women, and he was always on the side of love. He wrote maybe 1,000 songs in his career, but he also wrote a few essays, and I'd like to read a little bit of this essay that he wrote about love, quoting Woody Guthrie. Love can be, and sure enough is. Remember, he's from Oklahoma. Love can be, and sure enough is, moving in all things, in all places, in all forms of life. Love is in living cells. It's in bugs, even in biting insects, in reptiles and animals, in all the living birds. And whenever I see a human, there I know is a thing, not to be in any way hated or feared. But every person I meet is a test, to test forever my own powers to love. Love casts out hate. Love gets rid of all fears. Love washes everything clean. Love forgives debts, forgets mistakes, overcomes errors and excuses. Love pardons and understands the key reasons why those mistakes, errors, stumbles, spalls, and sprawls were made in the first place. Love is universal. Love governs the spin and the whirl of this earthly planet all around through the sky. Love balances every star you see above you by the uncounted blue jillions. Love moves 50 billion and more kinds of powers and rays and forces inside every little grain of sand. Love causes peace and harmony to whirl a whole new universe inside of every little atom. Love makes all good seed fertile. Love multiplies. Love is the trigger works of all mathematical numberings. Love drives the weather. Love works all mysteries. Love works all miracles. Love labors for the good and welfare of all people. Love does the most good for the most people. Love is energy. Love is strength. Love is health. Love is beauty. Love is all good, well done. Love is eternity. Love is here now. Love is the thinker of every good thought. Love ties all things together. Love makes all things one. Love is all there is to be. One person who truly loves could turn the universes of hate into roads that lead to heaven. And that's not the crescendo. I'll let you read along with me. The books of the Holy Bible never say but one time just exactly what God is. But in 3 little words, it pours out 100 million college educations and says, God is love. And that is the only real definitive answer to 10,000 wild queries and questions that I my own self have tossed at the Bible. That is the only really sensible, easy, honest, warm, plain, quick, and clear answer I found when I was ready to throw so-called fearful, cowardly, thieving, poisoning religion out my trash door. It was those 3 words that made not only religion, but also several other sorts of superstitious fears and hatreds in me meet one very quick death. God is love. Love is the only God that I will ever believe in. Amen. From Woody to Jesus, I am giving you a new commandment: love one another. Just as I have loved you, you should love each other. Your love for one another will prove to the world that you are my disciples. To be a disciple of Jesus is to strive, to at least try, to love other people. To prove one's faith is to practice love of neighbor. To believe in God is to believe in love. And that is the true vocation of the church, of faith communities centered around Jesus. Because guess what? Nobody else is going to do this. Nobody else in the world is going to try to live out the ethic of love. Corporations don't love. Governments don't love. Politics isn't about love. Wall Street isn't moved by love. Institutions don't perpetuate themselves by being loving. All we need is love, for sure, but there is an abysmal lack of it in the world if you have not noticed. But that's not a failure of the world. The world is just being what the world is. Don't be surprised when the world operates by the rules that it has established. But it is a failure of Jesus-inspired faith when love fails in the people that call Christ Lord. What's the church supposed to be doing? Loving others, period. What's your mission statement? Loving others, end of story, full stop. We can do that in 1,000 different dimensions, in 1,000,000 different contexts, but the one thing that we as Christians ought to be able to supply to the world is the love of God. James Baldwin said it like this: love has never been a popular movement, but the world is held together. Really, it is held together by the love and the passion of just a few people. One more dangerous clergyman for you this morning. Louis Eveille, a priest born in Belgium, 1910. He was a prolific writer. He held a master class every time he preached a sermon or led a retreat. And he was audacious in the things that he wrote and that he said, particularly, again, about the love of God. So audacious was he that the church forbid him, ordered him to never publish a book again, though he was the best-selling Catholic author of the 1960s. He left the priesthood in order to fulfill his vocation. And sometimes it's like that. One must be perceived as being unfaithful in order to hold to the faith. One must give up his or her calling in order to satisfy that calling. His last book, In the Christian Spirit, printed in 1975, is a little stick of dynamite, about 100 pages. And there he writes these words: the only way people can see Jesus Christ alive in the world today is for Christians to love one another. To believe in love is to believe in God. And to believe in God is to believe in the salvation of the world. The paradox of our time is that those who believe in God do not believe in the salvation of the world. And those who believe in the future of the world do not believe in God. Next slide, if you would. Christians believe in the end of the world. They expect the final catastrophe, the punishment of others, but not the possibility of redemption. God must feel very much alone. For is there anyone else in our faith besides God who believes in the salvation of the world? God seeks among us sons and daughters who love enough that God could send them into the world to save it.